Good evening, good folks, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission work session for this Monday, January 13th. May we have, do we need a roll call or you recognize everyone that's here, Madam Clerk?
I do recognize everybody.
Okay. Then we're going to jump right into our business because we have several items on the agenda, and we're going to be leading off with recognition of our volunteers on the various different city boards, committees, and commissions. And so we have over 160 people that serve on these various different boards and committees and commissions. And so we're going to recognize each of them. Several of you are in the room, so thank you for being able to join us. We did have an open house prior to this meeting with refreshments, and several of our volunteers were able to join that open house and got their certificates, but had to run, so they weren't able to stick around for the presentation now. But we wanted to present these during a full city commission meeting and on television, just to reinforce the importance of the work that you all do and our appreciation for the work that you do in our community. And so with that said, I'm going to invite our Community Relations Committee Chair, Vice Mayor St. Clair, up to the front. I'm going to go up there as well, and I'm going to read the names, and she'll be presenting them. Vice Mayor St. Clair is the chair of the Community Relations Committee, and that CRC receives and reviews all of the applications submitted to serve on one of the boards, committees, or commissions. And then once a year, we go through a full list of them, and if there are renewals, we look to reappoint or appoint new people. And then if you don't happen to get appointed, and this is for everybody, this isn't just in the room, maybe you're at home and you want to apply to one of our boards, committees, or commissions. One, you can stop by the city clerk's office to learn about these different opportunities, but you can complete that online as well. And so if you go to shorelincity.com, at the very top of the webpage to the far right, you'll see boards and committees. You click on that and you can find out about the different opportunities to serve, the membership terms of service, as well as frequency of meetings. And so that's how you can learn more about that and even apply right there online. So if you do apply, know that if by chance you don't get appointed in this go-around, and we're going to be making these appointments later this month, if you don't happen to get appointed this go-around, your application will remain on file. And so throughout the year, as vacancies may come about, we will look at the applications in our talent bank database, and we'll make additional appointments for those vacancies later in the year. So just know that. And we appreciate everyone who submits those applications and has a desire to serve. And we greatly appreciate all those that do serve. As you may see, I'm wearing, Watch Us Go, Watch Muskegon. This is not a city specific brand or initiative. This is a Greater Muskegon initiative. But you all, because of how you contribute to our city, a core city of this county, greatly contribute to Watch Us Go and moving Muskegon forward. And you certainly make our Shoreline City even more spectacular. So thank you. Vice Mayor St. Clair? And if you have anything to share, Vice Mayor St. Clair, about your role as chair or your experience, you're welcome to do so as well. Grab your microphone, Jonathan. If not, I think mine's a longer cord.
Yeah. It's closer. Go on that side of your street.
You should this microphone. All right. First up, we have the Board of Review. This committee is responsible, board is responsible for review of the tax assessment rolls. And we have David Medendorf. I don't see him in the audience, but thank you, David, for serving. We do have Martha Bottomley, who has served our community very well for many, many years.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you.
And we have Sherry Burt, also on Board of Review. Sherry in the audience? Nope. Thank you, Sherry. And I know Dr. Pamela Smith's not here with us. She had to run. I'll see her Thursday, so I can get that to her then. And then we have Clinton Todd. I saw him earlier. There you are, sir.
I'll see you here.
Awesome. Thank you for sticking around. Oh. We'll have to look at the budget on that. Right. And then we got Charlotte Barnes Evans. I don't think she's with us. So thank you, Charlotte. And we have Donna Vandervries, that is the assessor, and Dan Vanderkooy, deputy assessor. Are either of them in the audience with us? Nope. Well, we appreciate the work that they do. And next up, we have Citizens Police Review Board. First up, Chandrika Roberts. Didn't see here. I don't think she's here with us. Next up, Mr. William Muhammad. I've seen this gentleman here. This gentleman has been with this Citizens Police Review Board since its founding. And it was founded 2 decades ago. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad.
I know. All right.
Oh, you wanted to
Uncle
speak?
Billy.
Do you want to say a few words right now, or do you want to do that at the end? Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
How you doing? Thank you. Praise be Almighty God for being around this many years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And next up. Next up, we have Roselia Patino. I don't think she's with us. I do want to name everyone. I know it's going to take a little longer, but I do want to name everyone because I appreciate, and we appreciate, our entire organization and the commission appreciates every single person who volunteers their time and devotes their energy, talents, and passion to serving our city. And so next up, we have Robert Roundtree. I have not seen him. Thank you, sir. Sarah Overly. Mr. Eric Hood. He's not with us. I see Deborah Sweet. She just stepped out. And Faye Redmond. I haven't seen her with us. Thank you, Faye. And finally, Ann Craig.
Right behind.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. Oh, did you want to get a photo of her? You got it? Here, no, you want to get a photo? Here, we'll do a photo. Hey, we have to do a photo. Come again. We're going to do a photo. They want to get a photo, we'll get you in here with the vice mayor as well. Thank you. And next up, we have the Civil Service Commission. So this is responsible for classifying our offices of employment and making rules for the examination and selection of persons to fill the offices and positions in classified service, as well as supervising and administer civil service rules, holding examinations, certify eligibility, list of those passing examination. And so, I know David Wetland already got his. He was here earlier. Next up, we have Johnny Brown. Is Johnny here? All right, we'll get that to him later. And then we got Mary Louise LaBelle. Is she with us? Nope. Thank you, Mary. Next up, we have the Citizens District Council Community Development Block Grant. So this is serving an advisory capacity to the City Commission on all matters dealing with the federal housing and urban development programs. And first up, we have Cammie Horn. Is Cammie with us? I do not see her. All right. Dearica Nichols-Lewis. I've not seen her either. All right. Perry Denny. He got his certificate earlier when he was here with us. And Jennifer Sunaki. Jean Weirich. I have not seen Jean. Brianna Sanders. All right. Vina Coleman. Where's Miss Vina? Come on. I'll get that to Vina. And then thank you. Our commissioner liaison is Katrina Cochin. Ward 4 Commissioner Katrina Cochin is the commissioner liaison on that. Next up is Construction Code Board of Appeals. The purpose of the Construction Code Board of Appeals is as follows: to determine appeals and variances in connection with the State of Michigan Construction Code, including its building, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing provisions, together with codes enforced in the City of Muskegon from time to time. And so, in serving in the architect position, we have Brian Boucher, or Boucher. Not exactly sure how he might pronounce it. In French way, I'd say Boucher. But He's not here with us. Next up, we have Walter Christofferson serving in the electrical capacity. I don't think he's with us. Lane Benson serving in the mechanical position. We do have a vacancy on the plumbing side. So if you know a plumber, please send them our way because we've got an opening on the Construction Board of Appeals for this. And next up, we have Joshua Ost with serving in the public health capacity. And Wade Vandenbosch serving in the construction manager capacity. And Michael McFall serving in the fire capacity. He was here earlier and was able to get his certificate. Next up, we have the District Library Board. Wow, there's a lot of description for this. It involves the library. I'm not going to read this giant paragraph of text, but they do serve with our District Library Board with regard to Hackley Public Library. If you are interested in the different roles and responsibilities of that, I encourage you to go to the city's website and read up on that. But first up, we have Anita Bailey, who retired from this city in our community neighborhood services a couple years ago. Kevin Huss, he was here earlier and we were able to get him his certificate. And Greg Sisko is here with, is he? Nope. All right. Ardina Duran. And Thomas DeVoogd. I haven't seen him. And Karen Evans. Nope. No. And then the assessors on that as well, Barbara Van Fossen. Next up, we have our Downtown Development Authority and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Board and Tax Incremental Financing Authority. And so if you stick around later, we're going to be doing a presentation and discussion on a transformational brownfield plan, which is a little different version, an expanded version of the typical brownfields that we handle. So you'll hear about the differences between a standard brownfield as well as a transformational brownfield. And so this would be what we're considering as the first transformational brownfield plan in the city of Muskegon. And as I understand it, we would be only the third city in the state to take advantage of this plan and incentive program after Detroit and Grand Rapids. And so the DDA and the VRA serves to correct and prevent deterioration in the downtown development district, to encourage historic preservation, to create and implement development plans, to promote economic growth, and to acquire and dispose of interest in real and personal property, to levy and collect taxes, to issue bonds, and use tax increment financing. And so first up, we have Jay Wallace. I have not seen this gentleman. Don't believe he's here with us. Michael Cleveland. Don't think I've seen him either. I have seen Kyle Reed. Kyle?
I'm going to walk up here with some more swagger to the show.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Appreciate your service. Kyle's got a game store, the Griffin Press, downtown on 3rd Street. So check out his shop.
I got to go run a tournament.
Take care, Kyle. Be well. Andrew Boyd just stopped by here earlier, and we gave him a certificate as well as Heidi Seitzema. She was here with us earlier. Bob Tarrant. I don't think I've seen him. Brad Hastings. I haven't seen him. Martha Bottomley, you want to come back up? And Martha, are you still the chair?
Yes.
Martha's the chair of our Downtown
I
Development
have to put
Authority.
up with Kyle.
And he has some great input and questions. And
Yes, he
keeps
does.
on your toes, doesn't he?
Yes. I'm trying to keep him on his. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. And we have Sherry Black. She was here earlier. Jeanette Burt-Moore. I have not seen her. Thank you, Jeanette. Kaya Thornton. Not able to join us this evening, but thank you. Joanne Dornbos. Thank you. And Jonathan Seifert is, by statute, on the DDA as our city manager. So thank you for all the ways you serve our city, Jonathan. Oh, and we have Doug Pollock. He's no longer on the DDA, but he did serve a partial term in last year. So he served a partial term, but had been on the DDA for several years prior to that. And then we have the Election Commission. So the duties involve the examination of voting machines prior to a city election and the appointment of inspectors prior to a city election. And so Wanda Matzi. Betty Ivory Roberts, and Casey Allard. Thank you all for serving on the Election Commission. And just another opportunity to say thank you to the City Clerk's office because they ran a phenomenal election last go around. So thank you. And we have the Equal Opportunity Committee. Again, a long paragraph. I'm not going to read this entire paragraph. But the committee, and highlights, the committee is established to monitor and recommend hiring practice to the Civil Service Commission to achieve a higher level of minority and female employment in city government. And so we do have Kelly Gooden serving on this. I did not see Kelly here with us. Jared Guzarek, I don't believe he's with us either tonight. Rosie Buchanan served a partial term. She'd been on there for a number of years. And Charlotte Johnson, I don't believe she's here with us this evening. Lisa Judge, I see you in the back of the room.
Nice job, Mayor.
Thank you.
Bless you, sweetheart.
And we have Anna Zuber, not with us. And as the commission appointee, we do have Destiny Keener on this. So thank you for the ways you serve our community, Destiny, as well as Commissioner Willie German, not with us at the moment. And then the county EEO director serves on this committee as well. And then that's a partial term of Tanya Pell. So thank you, Tanya, for your past service on that committee. Next up, we have Farmers Market Advisory Board. This is a formal committee to act in advisory capacity to the City Commission on all matters dealing with the Muskegon Farmers Market, to include, but not limited to, farmers market ideas, rules, marketing issues, and complaints. And so, first up, we have Kim Martins. I don't think anyone on this list is here with us this evening, but I'm going to read through them nonetheless. Kim Martins, Diane Snow, John Visser, John Zanstra, Callie Travis, Kathy Upman, Kristen Johnson, Janine Platt, Cindy Larson, and then our very own Vice Mayor St. Clair serves on that as the commission liaison. And then we have the Historic District Commission. Its responsibility is to identify and evaluate structures or sites worthy of preservation and to be involved in projects or programs to this end. Disseminate public information concerning these structures and sites and consider ideas regarding them with groups of individuals interested in historic preservation. And make appropriate recommendations to the City Commission for encouraging and achieving historic preservation. And so we do have several different historic districts throughout Muskegon. You can go online and learn about the various different districts. They even launched a Facebook page, so you can follow them along on their various different historic district projects. Our own Ward 4 Commissioner Katrina Koshin is the liaison, commission liaison on the Historic District Commission, and the chair, Stephen Ratke. He served on there for a number of years. He's not with us this evening. Jacqueline Huss was here earlier with us. Corbin Davis. I don't see Corbin. We have Gregory Borgman. And Dave Gregerson was here earlier with us. And then Kimi George, finishing out a partial term last year. Next up, we have the Housing Code Board of Appeals. This is to review and decide whether or not to grant variances in cases where the general requirements of the ordinance creates a hardship. Is that the right description? That sounds like the ZBA.
That's not what we do, but
I was like, this does not sound like the description. So, we're going to have to look at that, the Talent Bank Index to make sure that this is the correct
Housing Board of Appeals.
Housing Code Board of Appeals.
Thank
It's got the ZBA's description on there.
Okay.
So maybe the ZBA has Housing Code. We'll get to the ZBA and find out. So this is Housing Code Board of Appeals. Basically, they're responsible when there is a identified dangerous building or property. It gets referred to the Housing Code of Appeals, and there's a process to review that. And the property owner has an opportunity to present and address the Housing Board of Appeals and make their case. The Housing Board of Appeals then decides what recommendation to make to the City Commission. Oftentimes they'll try to work with the property owner because demolition is not the first choice or resort. We want properties to be redeveloped. We want people to be able to benefit from their properties and enjoy their properties. But sometimes buildings need to be demolished because they pose a hazard to our community. And we want to ensure the public welfare, well-being, and safety of our community. And so on the Housing Court of Appeals, we have Jonna Willis, Kim Burr, she was here earlier, Corey Bickford, Ed Simmons. We do have a current vacancy too, unrelated to any expiring terms. So if you want to serve on the Housing Board of Appeals, to my knowledge, we're going to have at least 2 vacancies on the Housing Code Board of Appeals. So we have Ed Simmons, Stephen France, Tim Kozel, and Jay Kilgo is our commission liaison. There you are, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And next is the Housing Commission, which its purpose is to propose, provide, and manage decent, safe, and sanitary housing for low-income residents according to programs approved by the City Commission. And we have Jesse de los Santos on here. I don't believe they're in the room with us. Jonathan Wilson, not with us. Ken Grant, who also is our finance director for the City of Muskegon. And we have Onita Bailey and Jake Ekholm. He is our Director of Development Services. He got his certificate earlier. And our Vice Mayor St. Clair is the commission liaison on that commission as well. Next up, we have the Income Tax Board of Review. Purpose of this body is to grant and hold hearings on appeals of taxpayers or employers who have been assessed tax, denied a claim for refund, or aggrieved by a special ruling of the administrator. And on this, we have Bethany Cody, not with us. Patrick Keeley, I don't think he's with us. Michael Howeisen, and our city manager is also on the Income Tax Board of Review. Next up, we have the Lakeside Business Improvement District. This is the district was created to provide enhanced services in the Lakeside Business District through marketing activities, common area maintenance, such as snow removal and beautification. The intention in the bid's creation was to provide a funding bridge to a newly created Lakeside Corridor Improvement District and eventually have the bid expire as the CIA becomes able to fund the activities of the bid. And so this got launched a few years ago, and I say they're doing great work. And so thank you for all the people that have supported establishing the district, because it does require the property owners within the district to support it. They basically are getting assessed an extra tax, and that money goes into the business improvement district, and the board decides how to utilize those resources to support and market and promote our Lakeside Business District. And so they're doing great work, and I appreciate each of them. And starting with Louise Hobson, she's not with us. She was here earlier, got her certificate. She did just celebrate her 25th year in business. It's Art Cats Gallery on Lakeshore Drive. Go check her out. She's got a lot of great art there from a number of different artists throughout the region. So thank you, Louise. And Mark Flamoen. He is our chair of the Lakeside Business Improvement District and a big promoter of all things Lakeside. We also have Ronald Jenkins. He's not with us this evening, but thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Melanie Leone. And Dick Gezzi, not with us. Jackie Knowlton. Jackie with us? No. Derek Edlin. Served a partial term, and for just last year. He'd served for a number of years before that. And then Margaret Smith. for a loop with the Margaret.
I know.
I know you're Marge. Or Mom's. Mom's meets on Lakeshore Drive, so I was like, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret. Or Marge. And our city manager, Jonathan Seifert, also serves on the Lakeside Business Improvement District. Next up, we have our Local Development Finance Authority, which is to encourage local development to prevent conditions of unemployment and to promote economic growth, to create and implement development plans, to acquire and dispose of interest in real and personal property, to issue bonds and other evidences of indebtedness if and when needed, and to use tax increment financing if needed to achieve its goals. And we have Andrew Weibel, not able to be with us. Benny Chambers, I don't think they're in the room. Virginia Taylor, I have not seen her. Kevin Rico, not with us. Jeffrey Berg. I saw Kim here earlier. She had to go. I was like, Kim, where's Jeff? That's her husband. Patsy Petty, not able to join with us this evening. Kim Bidwell. Matthew Cortez. Beth Dick. And Mark Eisenbarth are all on that. So thank you all for serving. Next up, we have our Local Officers Compensation Commission. So basically, they meet every couple of years to make recommendation of the compensation for the City Commission. So it is a citizen-comprised body that reviews and makes recommendations on what we should get compensated. And so Greg Borgman is serving on that committee, as well as Dwayne Lang. Is Dwayne in the house with us? No. Michael Hughes, Paul Edbrook. No. Marty Farabee, Heather Hill was with us earlier, and Samara McIntosh. So thank you all for serving on that commission. Next up, Planning Commission. The responsibility of this commission is to make and adopt a master plan for the physical development of the municipality. The plan shall show recommendations for the development of the territory. The commission may amend, extend, or add to the plan. The commission shall have power to promote public interest in and understanding of the plan, may publish, distribute, and employ means of publicity and education as it may determine. And the Planning Commission shall adopt regulations governing the subdivision of land within its jurisdiction. And so on that body, we have Leah Willette Leroy, who's not able to be with us this evening, Steve Garin, Lachey Simmons II, Brian Mazade, Shoni Blake, Jill Montgomery Keast, Jonathan Seifert, our city manager, Destiny Keener, who is the vice chair of the Planning Commission. So thank you, Destiny, Commissioner Keener, for your service. Planning Commission meets this Thursday. I'm like, we're already going to be here later this week. He's like, we don't want to spend too much time at City Hall. Next up, we have Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. So the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee is a new committee established this past year, and or served for the full year this past year. And it is to advise the City Commission of matters relating to the proper conduct of public recreation programs and or facilities within the city, which shall be referred to such board from time to time. And on there, myself as chair of that committee, and we have Lynette Marks, not here with us, Sarah De Rosa, not here with us, Hillary Ross First, I don't see her, Evelyn Huff was here earlier with us, Yancey Odell Weaver, David Ruck, he was here, we got him his certificate earlier, Sydney Long, Leanne Haywood. Thank you. And Aaron Botbell-Mast. He's not here with us. He's probably at some other Parks and Rec meeting, because this man is the chair of the Muskegon County Parks and Rec Board. He also serves on the city's Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, and he works for the Ottawa County Parks and Rec Department. And he's working on trying to get a Friends of Muskegon Parks group established here, not just the city of Muskegon, but greater Muskegon. So if you have an interest in getting a non-governmental private parks, Friends of Parks group established for our Muskegon community, reach out to myself or Aaron, and we'll get this established and going, serving the greater Muskegon's park system. And we also have John Burt, who also is very well esteemed and steeped in Parks and Recreation, having retired from a profession in Parks and Recreation and now contributing his time and talent to our city.
Thanks, guys.
Go Yogi and Boom Boom.
Thank you, John. All right, and we also have Roberta King. She is the chairperson of the, or vice chair of the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. And then Jaquan Brown and Anthony Olshansky served partial terms last year. And I think this is the, are we down to the final? Oh, the last board, Zoning Board of Appeals. And this has the proper description. So it is to grant variances in cases where the general requirements of ordinance creates a hardship on individual owners and to make interpretation of code. And on that we have our City Commissioner, Ward 2, Willie German, State Commissioner German, Deborah Crockett, Roberta King, Virginia Taylor, Mike Gallivan, Jordan Height, and Jim Montgomery Keast. And a partial term, Jonathan Whitmer. Term for last year. He had been serving on our ZBA for a number of years. So thank you, Jonathan. He's the pretzel very last one. Thank you so much. So again, I just want to extend appreciation and so much gratitude to everybody that serves on one of these boards, committees, or commissions, or chooses to serve and contribute your time and talents and passions in other ways for the betterment of our community. Because we know there are so many different ways that we in this community pull together and contribute to make Muskegon more magnificent. And I really, truly appreciate that. And our entire city commission appreciates that. And our staff appreciate that. The more community partners we have to move this community forward, the better it's going to get. So thank you so much for your service, and however you serve this community, thank you.
There is still time to apply. If you are interested in serving on any of these committees, you can find the link. Is it on the Connect Muskegon site or just the regular website? It's on the regular website, and we'll get it put up on the Facebook page too for ease of access. So, to everyone.
Thank you. Yes,
I'm
city manager's got something to say.
just going to add one thing. One of the committees, the Lakeside Bid Committee, I've delegated that one to Sarah Wilson, our city treasurer. I thought I saw Sarah here, but I just wanted to make sure. But I just wanted to make sure that we publicly recognize Sarah as well for filling that role from the staff perspective.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. All right, getting on with the rest of our meeting, we have Shaw Walker, Transformational Brownfield Plan discussion. And that's going to be led out by our city manager.
Yes. So everyone's familiar with where the Shaw Walker building is in the Nims neighborhood on the lower western side of downtown. And in February, the developer is going to come to talk about some requests for the economic development package to make the deal viable. And so what we're doing tonight is hearing from the developer and his team about aspects of the more economic portions of the development and what's going on with the development. So we're going to turn it over to John and Rory and their team and move forward from there. Jake is also going to be doing part of the presentation.
He's here.
Oh, he's back there. He's hiding behind the pillar. I think actually Jake's going to start off the presentation part of it. So we'll start out with Jake and then go into John and Rory.
Welcome, sir. If you kindly introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I am Jake Etcombe, the Director of Development Services for the City of Muskegon. And as we mentioned, we knew for some time that this project would be a good candidate for and is in good standing towards being awarded transformational brownfield approval from the state of Michigan. It will have a process to go through with the city commission as well, and there will be a project update tonight as well as some general progress on the project, that the portions that have already begun. But before we got into that, I've met with most of you one-on-one as to transformational brownfield in one avenue or another, and how what it really is and what it's meant to be in the state of Michigan. But I wanted to just briefly go through really what the statute is and how it differs from the local brownfield plans that have come in before you in the past, and how it applies to the Shaw Walker project. So with that, really briefly, we'll talk through the specific amendments to Public Act 381, which is the Michigan Brownfield Act, the differences between local brownfields and transformational brownfield, and then the process that will follow after tonight and the next steps. And then just to lead off, so everybody's crystal clear on what we're talking about, that is a postcard photo of the Shaw Walker factory when it was operational. So quite a few decades ago. So this would be one of the largest generational adaptive reuses in the state of Michigan, and certainly the largest one in our community from an adaptive reuse standpoint in recent memory. So Public Act 381, or the Brownfield Act as it's most commonly known as, in 2017 the state legislature made several amendments to it, and they defined a term called transformational. So they defined transformational projects that meet certain criteria, and then they left a lot of that very vague. In 2021, they specifically expanded the criteria to include projects that had housing components or were specifically driven by housing. We've talked at length about how the state has recognized that there's a pretty severe housing need in the country and the state of Michigan, and so they've tried to put more tools and development toolkits to speak to that need. So transformational brownfield at its core, it provides more incentives from state tax sources for financially challenging projects than a traditional local brownfield will. It must be determined by the state's Michigan Strategic Fund Board to provide exceptional positive impacts to economic development in the community that it's located in. And then as of 2023, the cap on program investments was also substantially increased. So any project can be located in any community. So that's a little bit more wide-ranging than some other aspects of Public Act 381 that require them to be qualified communities. So this can be anywhere, but must have a minimum capital investment based on the chart that you see in this slide. So for us, being a population between 25,000 and 49,999, the direct investment by the applicant must be at or exceeding $25 million. As you'll hear in the developer's presentation, there are several orders above that level of investment. So this is really what I want to focus on and make sure that we all understand as we walk through, the next month or two, where there's going to be actionable items in front of you that we're going to request a vote on. Really the difference between a traditional brownfield plan and a transformational brownfield plan. So in the Act, a traditional brownfield plan, eligible facilities include contaminated places, functionally obsolete places, so places that can't be used for what they were intended anymore, historically significant resources, or places that have been defined as blighted. And so there's a lot of local control in these definitions, and that's by design. They want the local brownfield boards, review boards, to have the ability to identify sites for local TIF capture. You can do all of those same things in a TBP, but in addition, a transformational brownfield plan, but in addition, the project must have that transformational impact on the economic development and community revitalization as agreed upon by both the local commission authority as well as the Michigan Strategic Fund Board. So the minimum investment, generally speaking, is $100 million. As you saw, it varies by population, but it's actually significantly more than that the larger the population goes, but for us it's that 25 figure. The eligible costs in a traditional brownfield include demolition, environmental site assessments and remediation, site prep, so all the stuff that's pre-development, pre-construction, those are eligible activities under local brownfield. We've seen several projects in the city avail themselves of that, and all over the city, along the lakeshore, in the industrial park, in the neighborhood, neighborhoods. We've had a number of brownfields. You can go for all those things in a TBP, but in addition, active construction activities, restoration, alterations, renovations, or improvements to the site or building are all also eligible for TIF reimbursement through tax capture. And that's a key difference. So the line in the sand in traditional brownfield was always anything that's pre-development is usually eligible. And in this case, active construction activities are eligible. And again, it's due to the impactful nature of these projects. The state is typically restricted to a total of 5 projects per year to be approved under this. So it's not something that can be locally approved and then state approved, to the tune of, in some cases, triple digits local brownfields that have been approved across the state of Michigan in a single year. These are highly selective, highly reviewed, impactful projects. So again, the taxes captured, in this case, it was incremental property taxes for local brownfields. There is another avenue that the state has allowed through the MSF board for folks to capture state education tax, and that's what's called like a state capture brownfield through MEDC. We've had a couple of those. Adelaide Point and some other projects have successfully achieved that. Transformational brownfield goes a step further, and so it includes the incremental property taxes, but also all the construction labor state income tax. So during construction, all the income taxes paid to the state by the workers on that project can also be reimbursed to the developer. Permanent employees, so the state income tax for anybody that's an employee of the facilities in that place, and then also the resident state income tax. So these are all specifically worked into the budget to allow for these types of impactful projects to be funded through tax increment financing without adversely impacting the overall general budget for the state. Tax exemptions, again, there are none for a local brownfield, but for a TBP, you'll see sales and use tax exemptions on construction materials. So that's another way to reduce upfront hard costs on these large scale projects. So as far as what you'll see over the next steps, you're going to see a pretty in-depth project update this evening, and then next month I think our current plan is to bring several items for your consideration, and I'm going to encourage folks, if you have questions, between this meeting and that meeting, to reach out to our office. I'll likely proactively reach out to you again under the auspices of the manager as well, just to say, hey, do we understand this thing? This is our first transformational brownfield, and I think you can really see the impact that this adaptive reuse project has, because the other communities in Michigan that have achieved transformational brownfield are effectively Detroit and Grand Rapids. And so this is not something that's done typically in the state of Michigan. So next month at the BRA regular meeting, there will be consideration and approval of the local brownfield tax increment financing plan, assuming there are no issues with that with the board there. That's their purview. And then review and approval of the housing affordability agreement will come here. That's a key component of transformational brownfield. It's part that is statutorily required. That will go to the February 11th City Commission meeting. Review and approval of the transformational brownfield plan draft itself. That has already gotten feedback from the state agencies, relevant state agencies. That should be at February 11th. And then review and approval of our community benefit agreement draft, which is separate from the TBP process but concurrent with the Shaw Walker project. We'll present at that work session the day before and review that document as well. So you'll have several action items coming before you. I just wanted to make sure we all were clear on the difference between a local TBP or a local brownfield and the transformational brownfield plan. So with that, I would turn it over to Parkland to give you a project update and entertain any project-related questions that you might have.
Thank you, Director Ekholm. Welcome. Can you please introduce yourselves?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm John Rooks. I'm the founder and owner of Parkland Properties, and with me tonight is Rory Sharon, the Chief Operating Officer, and behind me is our guru of tax incentives from Warner Norcross and Judd. He is a lawyer, has specialized in tax incentives, and has worked with us as long as we've been doing tax incentives or economic development incentives.
Good evening and welcome.
We'll try to be brief. Some of this you've seen before, but for the benefit of the audience, we'll probably run through some of the same images you've seen before, if that's okay.
Okay.
So this project has been in the works for us for just over 2 years, and we started our heavy lifting prior to our closing. You want me to hit this or you want to hit it? The image shown is what the project will look like upon completion. We all know what it looks like today, and we're sick of looking at it, so I didn't put those images back on the screen. But anyway, yeah, so this property was acquired on December 22, just over 2 years ago. It's 15 acres. It's a large parcel. It's obviously at the main artery entrance and exit to our city, so it's very visible. We see it all the time. Even the marina guests that visit the municipal marina, when they travel by boat, get a front and center view of this war zone looking property. It's 630,000 square feet. For the sake of comparison, you're familiar with the transformational project we did back in 2018 called High Point Flats, and that had a big role in bringing back our downtown. It was the first real market rate project that had been developed in a couple decades. This is 12 and a half times the square footage of High Point Flats. This is over 24 times the development cost of High Point Flats. So it's a huge deal to us because it's like doing 24 of those projects. It's taken careful planning, but we feel like we've gotten a long way in the 2 years. We are arguably taking the largest building in the city and one of the biggest in the state of Michigan into this vibrant mixed-use community. And right now, there's only 53 residential units. The person that developed it initially went bankrupt doing it. But we have a plan that when it's completed, we'll have 591 residential units, including the 55 that are already there, and then 9 commercial units to make it a mixed-use project with 600 units total. And as you may remember from previous meetings, those mixed-use aspects include 430. Well, we'll get through that, but the retail aspects will have restaurant, bar, fitness center, lifestyle amenities like daycare center and pet care, hair salon, a small grocery, and then a massage therapy, most likely. Since the most recent City Commission meeting I presented at back in July, we have now entered into a construction agreement with A.M. Higley. It's a huge general construction company that has done many, many projects that are larger than this. We didn't want this project to be the largest that the construction company has built. We wanted them to be very confident in their abilities. And then we have Concord Group, who will be the owner's rep. They are the same owner's rep that's handling the amphitheater in Grand Rapids. They handled the Muskegon Hospital project, which was a $280 million project. They're very capable. And as a team, they're representing us, and the general contractor and us will have a seamless relationship like we did. We used the same system when we worked at the convention center and when we worked on High Point Flats. All of our building plans have been completed over this last 24 months. We hired a really reputable company called Ghaffari, and they work throughout the state, and they've been these plans have been submitted to the city. It's a safe build, and they're under review, and they're told to be the best plans, some of the best plans they've ever seen. We already started. If you've driven by, you've seen dozens of cars there every day. We've already started with the demolition and the lead paint abatement and all the asbestos removal in order to make it a safe place to work once we start full construction going forward. So you don't see windows and walls coming out yet because we need to keep the building enclosed to protect it from the elements while we remove all of the interior lead-based paint and the other hazardous materials that need to be removed. You'll see pictures shortly of what it looks like. It's a big difference. We have built construction offices in the event center. We applied for those permits quite a while ago. We're almost done with those. We're going to move Parkland's office there. during the 4 years of construction. It'll also put us closer to the Sappy property. And we're just continuing to work with city staff and state on project support, which is one of the things we're here for. The majority of the project support is coming from the state. And then this is the view of the building with the restaurant on the lower level. The retail is all sort of in the center of the project. The condos, the 69 condos, are on the right side of the old smokestack. And then the left side is the 432 apartments. And then the top of the shorter building is the pool and rooftop deck area. And there's a view of the rooftop deck area with the two clubhouses. One's reservable, one's not reservable. And then it's open all the time. And then there's a rooftop stairway that goes to another rooftop deck that looks down the lake all the way to the channel. So I think it's going to be one of the coolest places to live in all of West Michigan. These are new images we hadn't done before, but it actually is an actual drone photo from up on top, looking down Western, which will light up at night and be amazing at night, and then a great view of the lake, and just a really cool view from the waterfront. It's a stone's throw from the marina, and the front on the right side is the condominiums with the balconies that add 150 square feet of space in front of each of those condos. But the majority of the project is the part to the left, which would be the attainable workforce housing that really attacks the needs of this community with 432 apartments. This is the existing condition. About 6 months ago. And since then we've started a lot of work, but this is before we started, and we just wanted to show you kind of the contrast. This is with the lead-based paint and the contaminated wood blocks that have creosote in them that have to go to a type 2 landfill. This is the rolling floors, the skateboard floors, that were warped from the water infiltration since 1989 over the last 35 years. And this is the process of some of the blocks getting shoveled out of there by the equipment. The building's so strong that they have these mini bulldozers that go through the building and take the floors out. And then we were able to convert from a water-based lead paint removal system to a dry-based lead paint removal system so we could continue during the winter. It would have been too dangerous to use water in the winter because of the freezing. Now you can see what it looks like when it's sandblasted. So it's sandblasted, it's beautiful, wood, board-formed concrete. All the ceilings will remain as is and will be exposed, and those pillars will become integrated into the wall systems. So you see at least half of the pillar in each of the units, and sometimes a whole pillar depending on how wide they are. So the first two of the 5 buildings are buildings 3 and 4, the two biggest, well, the biggest one, and then the pool building that has the retail below. Those are the first 2 buildings being complete. And we're currently out to dozens of contractors that are competing for the work, as many locals as possible, West Michigan contractors that are interested in working on a project this large. We're trying to make it so we can involve smaller contractors too by letting them just bid 1 building or 2 buildings and not the whole project, to make it available to all size contractors. We're going to start with the apartment portion first because that's where the big need is in the housing studies, to build the apartments first, and then at the end of the timeline we'll be doing the condominiums and then also the townhomes that will screen off and hide the warehouse that's going to be retained for a parking garage for the condominiums. Overall it's a 3 to 4 year timeline, but as early as late 2026 we'll be able to move people into the top floors of building 3 and gradually more floors as we complete. We did the same thing when we built High Point Flats. We started with the top down with occupancy, and that way we could phase in occupants and have a better absorption rate based on completion versus when they actually moved in. And it was good for the community because it provided a phase-in approach of occupancy. We're targeting construction in 2025 as early as possible in the summer. But as we go through this presentation, we're going to explain why this transformational brownfield program is so important for a project like this based on current interest rates and construction cost increases over the last 5 years. Interest rates have doubled, construction costs have gone up 50%. This tool was designed by the state to attack that problem. This transformational brownfield plan is sort of a comparison to a traditional brownfield plan, and Jake already summarized it well. The big impact is that you pick up, instead of just property tax, which comes from the normal brownfield plan, you're also allowed to capture state sales use and income taxes for a shorter duration of 20 years, not the full 30 years. But with that, it makes the projects like this that are extra risky because they're extra large or extra expensive to construct more risk-free and doable and then financeable. So the key for us is we need the support of our banks, and this helps us get the support of our banks. And then the last point is it's really a risk-free approach for the state because it's performance-based. If the developer doesn't perform, the state doesn't have invest any money that they don't get back. So unlike some of the tax breaks that you get where they're paid up front, if the project doesn't go forward, the tax break, the grant, is a waste of investment for the state of Michigan. And this doesn't have that because it's all incremental. It's as if this project, right now, if it wasn't going to be moving forward, it wouldn't generate the income that is going to be captured. But because it is moving forward, it captures the income later from its own performance. So the transformational brownfield tool is relatively new, and as a result, it's highly sought after, but it's also very selective, and they pick projects based on the ones that are going to do the most for their communities and for the state of Michigan. So there's only been 5 so far. We would be the 6th one in the state, and the size of some of these projects are much, much larger, but it's also interesting that there's a couple that are a little bit less. So we wouldn't be the largest by any means, but we also wouldn't be the smallest. And these are the projects that have already been approved, and we're the one now that's seeking approval for the new TBP. And then the breakdown of the project is, as I mentioned earlier, 69 new condos, eventual renovation of the 33 existing that we still own, and then 432 new apartments is the first part of the project, with 31 studios, 347 one-bedrooms, 44 two-bedrooms, and 10 three-bedrooms, and then about 25,000 square feet of retail space that will break out into those 8 or 9 tenants I talked about earlier that really are lifestyle tenants for the neighborhood and for the people that live there. It's almost like living in a cruise ship because of all the things you get to do within the building. And the breakdown was determined in part by us, but very well driven by a CBRE study that was very expensive to try to analyze the demand of this community, and then dovetails into the housing study that both the county commissioned and the city commissioned. So they took the 2 housing studies into account and then worked with our architectural sizing and our architect to come up with the best plan to break it down so that we can fill these. Because we have those 31 studios, we're able to achieve a lot of the goals of the community that I can talk about in a little bit. But at the end of the day, we took that study, gave it to Grand Valley State University, and had a impact assessment put together, and it results in a $15.3 million annual output for the city of Muskegon downtown mostly, and then 1.5 billion over the next 50 years, and with all the jobs that it creates. They take into account the jobs it's creating by needing construction materials, putting those construction materials together to build the building, and then the long-term impact of the property managers, the leasing agents, the cleaning staff, and all the people that work in the retail outlets. We are currently $5 million into this property since we purchased it. An additional outlay of our own cash for design and planning and site cleanup. Our timeline as we move forward in the next few months is this day. Today is where we're just we're not asking for a vote or anything, and we're not coming back tomorrow. We wanted to give a month of time for you guys to marinate on all the information we share and the community to understand it better. And then in February, we'll come back for our local formal approval at your normal city commission meeting. And then we'll be in front of the state in March. Their approval is conditioned on your approval first. They want to know that the city supports this before they'll vote for it. And then we'd start construction shortly after that. And for us, the TBP, or the transformational brownfield, is a critical component of our project's viability. So we are interested in moving this forward as fast as possible in order to keep the desired timeline moving, because we already have construction company staff on site managing the demo, and at some point the demo won't be enough for them to manage. We need them to manage forward construction, and there's a fee associated. So we have all three of us here to answer any questions. We've got more information we'll bring you in a month, but this was the amount of information we thought would be appropriate for this meeting, just to get everybody up to speed, including the members of the community that are in this room.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Ricks. Really appreciate you being here tonight to present on this, and moreover, for you and your team's dedication to and undertaking of this massive redevelopment project. So thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Ricks or his team on this transformational brownfield plan? And of course, like you said, this is coming back to us next month for formal consideration and vote. And so if something comes to mind over the next several weeks, you'll have an opportunity to ask your questions then as well. But any questions right now? Or thoughts you wish to share right now? Again, you'll have an opportunity to give your input on the project next month, but we'll welcome thoughts or questions now. Commissioner Keener.
Thank you, Mr. Rooks, for your time. And for this project, especially as with us having a major housing issue in the city, and your price points were like just chef's kiss for me. Very affordable, obtainable for a number of our working class here in Muskegon. And then a building that I've grown seeing my entire life of being a Muskegonite, to have someone redevelop it in such a way that you have spent a great deal of time and making it so modern and sleek as well. I can really appreciate that. And additionally, with our conversation, even my thoughts of wondering what if people, I really have concern with having individuals that are people of color and minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, having ability to participate in this project, and your willingness to allow for people of color and minority women and minority businesses to be able to submit bids. I can appreciate that as well, as I have a huge issue with developers that come in and look outside the community, and that forward thinking as well with using all over West Michigan different businesses. I can appreciate and value that too, and that you are thinking this much about a community in which you don't even live in and have invested so much money in. I really appreciate that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Keener. Did I see Commissioner Kogo? Did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say,
from some entities around the community, including our own Safe Build, I want to say thank you, and I'd love to just continue to see and hear good reports from the demolition process so far, but also when construction starts, like when Safe Build tells me, hey, over there at the Shaw Walker, 5 stars, everything's getting done properly, the right way. Those are things I like to hear. We want to make sure that the building's safe, and when our teams go in there and they're giving 5-star reports, that's what I like to hear. Obviously, we all know it's an old building, and I've seen the inside of it, and it is, we're making sure that it's safe for people who are going to live there, and I love to see that. So I just continue to love to see good reports and good progress as the project rolls along. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Commissioner Cochin.
I just wanted to also share one thing. So, it's a little bit of an anecdote, but when I got this position and I would run into people in the community, or I would go back to Grand Rapids and I'd run into family members and friends, and they'd ask me about what I'm doing. The first thing that they would ask is, what's going on with that big old ugly factory? And I'd be like, actually, we have a plan for that. And I felt very honored to be included in going down and seeing what that factory looked like before they started the process and then through the process so far. And I am excited to say that I think that it's not going to be a big old ugly factory for too much longer. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thank you. I could echo everything that everyone has said. I drive past that building most every day and have for a long time, and it's always hurt my eyeballs a little. But I'm really excited to see what it can be. I'm also really intrigued by this transformational brownfield. I think that we have had local brownfields work really effectively for our community, and I know that people are sometimes confused about how brownfields work, and there's ideas that we're giving money to developers, and I appreciated the reiteration that it only pays if it pays, and if you're not doing the work to make the reimbursables happen, there's no money that's going to flow backwards, and I think that the community, once they understand, will really appreciate that. That it's it's a win-win for pretty much everybody, and it's a really great opportunity to incentivize a massive project that took another developer completely down. So, which is why we have the ugly Hulk that we do currently. So, I think that this is going to be a really great opportunity, and to echo Commissioner Keener, I'm really excited about the price point of the apartments. I'm excited that there are so many studios and 1-bedrooms. That is a big gap, and we've been focusing a lot on subsidized housing that is for families, and there are so few studio apartments in this community, and to have that kind of housing available to all types of people with those kind of amenities is something that I think will really help move us forward as a community.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner German or Commissioner Gorman, either you have anything to ask or add at this point?
Yeah.
Commissioner German.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brooks and your team, thank you for presenting tonight. Really appreciate your investment over the years here in the city of Muskegon. Um, Again, for you, another huge project. And I've always said that if anyone can complete a project and do it right, I think you're the guy for it. So, and I mean that when I tell you that. So I appreciate that because you take every measure to do things the right way. And a partnership with the city, um, when you come uh, to present, you have a plan, and it's really, I can say, really thought out. And as for the invitation also to come and look and see what that building looks like inside, it's a lot of work, and those guys and your team are actually working hard to do everything they can to keep that safe and everything the rest of the commission and said. We just appreciate the effort and to make that presentable to the public, but also giving Muskegon a opportunity to draw in, people to live downtown and in the area. So really appreciate that. And thank you for your investment, you and your team.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Commissioner Gorman?
I'll just add on to everyone. I told John and Rory this earlier. I just feel like it's the right time and it's the right people. So we appreciate your investment in the community, but also keeping the commission up to date. You guys are doing a great job being very intentional about providing updates to us as we have questions, being communicative. And I think our residents are really feeling that we as a commission are very informed and aware of what's going on with the project. So I really appreciate the extra effort you're doing for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. And I'll just say ditto to everything my fellow commissioners have said this evening. And I thank you. I appreciate your continued investment in choosing to grow with Muskegon. So thank you. And I look forward to you returning next month when we have formal consideration and vote on the various different agreements and aspects of moving this project forward. So thank you. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to switch things up order a little bit. So next up, we're going to go to Beach Street winter closure. Then we'll do the Nelson House update and discussion. And so we'll have, welcome, good sir. You'd kindly introduce yourself.
Certainly. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Dan Vanderhyde, Director of Public Works for the city. Just a minute here to get my technology working.
I'll just kind of tee you up while you're doing that. So as folks know, Beach Street, a section of Beach Street near the water filtration plant, between the roundabout, the traffic circle near the water filtration plant, and Beechwood Park, gets shut down or closed temporarily in the winter months. This is a practice that's been going on for many years, over a decade. And when it was shut down a few weeks ago, there were some questions and comments and from the community about this, and so I thought it might be a good idea for our DPW director to share why this is being done.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So I've got just a very basic little thing to show up on the screen here so we all have the same frame of reference, and I can point to the data that I have up there. So as the mayor said, there's a section of Beach Street that we close each winter. We typically close it from somewhere right around just before Christmas to somewhere in the middle of March. And we do that because it is extremely difficult to maintain it in a passable condition throughout the winter. If you've ever been out that way, as I'm sure most of us have on a windy, blustery day, you can imagine that keeping a road open in those conditions can be challenging. So just so we're on the same page, here's the stretch that we do close. There are gates at both ends. The city's water filtration plant sits kind of in the northern portion of that. The southern portion is sometimes known as Thin Beach, or just as a part of the Pere Marquette Park. And then it curves back in towards the Beechwood neighborhood and Beechwood Park, and eventually flows down to Sherman. So a couple decision points, I guess, that we make when we're closing Beach Street. As I said earlier, it is quite a bit of work and therefore quite a bit of cost for us to keep open. It also, during the times that it is open, in November and early December, as well as late March, find a number of folks who get stuck out there. We've pulled more than a few delivery vans and even police vehicles out of there, or helped, because even the tow trucks have a tough time moving around in a foot of sand or various other things that might be piled up out there. So that's definitely one part, and I've got some statistics about those costs. So that $76,000 number is everything we spend in the course of a year to keep the sand at bay. So that's the loader that you see driving around quite consistently out there. Those are the brushes that brush the sand off the sidewalks and off the parking lots and various things like that. The next section there talks about the portion to keep the red piece of Beach Street, which is again the piece that we showed up on the map there. And that's in order to keep it open for the period that we currently close it. So this would be an additional cost. We estimate at about $28,000. And that's based on really detailed records that our highway department has kept since about 2010. And we estimate that that would be about 212 hours, which is about one person working 2 days of every week that it's closed, with a loader, snowplow, brushes, trucks, so on and so forth, to haul the sand, move the sand, plow the road, salt the ice, etc. We do, and in fact we have this year already, we've spent $9,400, or we did spend $9,400 to keep it open just in the time period since Halloween and before it was closed just prior to Christmas. So that's November and a good chunk of December. We spent about $9,400 or 72 hours maintaining that section in that time period. And you know, these numbers, just to give you some context, so for that piece of Beach Street that I've highlighted in red, we get from the gas taxes, and those are that's the way we fund all streets in the city of Muskegon. We have no local additional sources except that which might be contributed by the city out of the general fund or something like that. But in general, we've got the gas taxes, and we get, for that stretch that's highlighted in red, $18,750 per year. That's for the whole year. That's to paint the road, patch the road, maintain the road, plow the road, salt the road, and then eventually rebuild it as well. And so you can see that we're spending, you know, quite a bit more than that contribution that we get from the state. That's not terribly unique in itself. We certainly spend more, for example, on Laketon Avenue than we do on other streets in the city. But, and this gets into those decision points, given the nature of Beach Street and the fact that it is, for all intents and purposes, in the time period of the year that it's closed, you know, a sightseeing route. There's nothing along that stretch of road that you could be doing other than stopping, parking, and viewing the lake. I'd point out that you can do those same things on the section of Pere Marquette that we do still maintain throughout the year, north of the roundabout. And I'd also point out that there is really no difference if you weren't sightseeing. There is no difference in the amount of time that it takes to get from the beach area to other parts of the city. And to point that out, I came up with a little catchy statement there that if you were to drive from dinner to dessert, neither of those businesses is open at this time of year. But if you were to go from the deck to the Frosty Oasis, it is 0.1 miles longer to use Lakeshore and Lincoln, but it is effectively the exact same amount of time. And that's true for any two locations that are affected by this closure. There's no particular thing, home, or you know, any destination that is not subject to that same calculation. So again, if there were a strong reason to keep it open, then certainly that amount of money might be something we'd be, you know, happy to perform. But given that we can save anywhere from, you know, 28,000 or perhaps you know, additional costs as well in terms of, you know, towing and police presence out there and so on and so forth. feel it's a good decision to direct those resources elsewhere and help repave and do other things with that money elsewhere in the city. That being said, we stand ready to hear the commission's thoughts and I know.
Thank you, Director Andrew. I really appreciate those insights and that context. And just to give a little bit more historic background on this, because I did some digging, and then a constituent had shared some information with me as well, because this practice had started before my arrival on the city commission. And I think actually the only person who's actually ever voted to close down this, because it doesn't actually require a vote. But the only person that has actually ever voted on it was Commissioner German over a decade ago, because it was started as a pilot one year. I want to say it was 2011 or 2012 as a pilot. And then the subsequent year, it was brought back to the commission. And the only person at that time was Commissioner German who served, and from this dais at least. And the commission, if I recall from the minutes correctly, unanimously supported closing. It was sensible to do for the reasons that Director Vanderheide shared this evening. But technically, it does not require a commission vote, so long as it's a temporary traffic control order that does not exceed 90 days. State statute empowers a municipal engineer to make that determination of such road closure on a temporary basis. And so if it were to exceed 90 days, then that's when it requires City Commission approval to extend or renew it. So I just wanted to give a little bit more background on that. But commissioners, questions or comments on this item? I did see Commissioner Kilgo with his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you presenting. I also, if it doesn't require our vote, don't know why we are hearing it, but it sounds like there are some people in the public that were curious about why it's closed. So thank you for explaining that. It definitely makes sense to me. I do have a couple curious questions. That section, that particular section that's closed off, do we fence that section like we fence the rest of the beach, like for sand buildup and stuff?
We do recently. There was a period of time when the water was too high to make it effective to fence, but since the Corps has helped us and rebuilt that beach, so to speak, we've been fencing it again. And it's helpful, but it's not perfect.
Right. Okay. And are the parking lots in the rest of the Pier Marquette circle open to the public during winter months?
They are technically open. They are maintained, I would say, to a varying condition. We certainly keep the roads open and passable north of the roundabout. Certainly some parking spaces will always be accessible, but I wouldn't say that they are all accessible all winter. No.
Gotcha. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Commissioner Koja?
Yes, well, thank you very much, Director Vanderheide, for bringing this up, as well as Mr. Mayor for bringing it to the commission, just so that everybody understands why this section of road is closed. Some of the things that you pointed out during the presentation was, talking about salting that specific stretch of road and how that would add to the cost. And I think that another thing to think about when we're thinking about keeping this road closed is also the environmental impact. And if we were to be salting the road right there on Beach Street, where it's so close to our lake, I think that we would see more environmental impacts over time. So I'm thankful that we are not choosing to do that at this time. And also the impact on the actual road itself. I know that it was closed for a section of time due to the damage from the high water. And when we have this road closed down because it's not being used, it will help extend the life of the road over time. So as somebody who loves driving down Beach Street and seeing the waves and parking over in that specific area, I also really enjoy parking my car up top and walking down and enjoying the views down there as well. So thank you so much for this report.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. Commissioners, anything else to ask or add at this time? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Director Vanderheide. Appreciate you presenting and sharing those insights with us and equipping us with the information so that we can answer questions as they come from our residents. Thank you.
If I may hijack just for about 30 seconds on a
Certainly.
similar topic. Just wanted to use this as an opportunity to point the public to the city's website, particularly the highway portion. And in fact, if you go to shorelincity.com/snow-plowing, you can see all kinds of info, including frequently asked questions about why we plow, how we plow, where we plow, things like that. I know that's been a concern in the community over the last few weeks or days. And just wanted to get some of those questions answered and information back out there. So that's right at the top of the page. You'll see a frequently asked questions document on the highway page, and again, you can get directly to it if you go to shorelincity.com/snow-plowing.
Excellent. Thank you for highlighting that, and that's also points to another benefit of closing Beach Street during these challenging winter months, because it frees up staff time to focus on plowing and snow and ice removal elsewhere throughout the city. So thank you. All right, next up we have Nelson House update and discussion. Welcome, sir. If you'd kindly introduce yourself.
Good evening, everybody. Jamie Pesh with the Planning Department, and as far as it's relevant to this conversation, the staff liaison to the Historic District Commission as well. So the last update we had was prior to posting the request for bids for the Nelson House, the historic house that was moved to 382 West Muskegon just this past summer. Since then, the bid period ran from about September 10th to late November 21st, and prospective bidders and their contractor were required to schedule walkthroughs at the site with myself present, and that was among various other submission proposals that were approved by this commission. Initial interest came from a number of parties. I ended up walking through one party, a number of different site visits, and ultimately we did not receive any bids on the house by the bid period ending. So staff is now looking to consider 3 possible options moving forward. Still looking to sell the house, obviously. So I just wanted to run through those. The first one is, up until the end of the bid period, we had never contacted a realtor, reached out to them, or utilized the services of a realtor to advertise the property for sale. All approaches for purchase had to be run directly through the city, through the request for bids, and that obviously yielded no actual bids. Interest, but no bids. Listing a house, we feel, through a realtor could open up the market for the house, broaden the reach, so to speak, and could come with all of the benefits that would come with the experience of a realtor when it comes to selling a house. One thing to note here is that with the bid process, we did not set a minimum bid price, so it would be expected that if that were to remain the case, there would likely be just a flat rate for the costs associated with hiring a realtor, rather than being done on commission as a sale price of the house. The second one that we looked into was potentially revising the conditions of the purchase and redevelopment agreement for the house. As you recall, there were a number of specifics in there, things like the commitment to owner-occupy, restriction to single-family occupancy for the house, and a 12-month project completion timeline. So we did, as staff, gain some insight into this process in touring a party through the house. The 12-month project completion timeline was a bit tight. It also would have potentially, had a bid been received and the house sold, started in the winter, which wouldn't have necessarily helped construction at the house for this time. So looking at potentially making that a longer period of time to do work on the interior of the house. We also had requirements in there that interior work had to start within, I believe it was 60 days of the sale of the house, and exterior work had to start with I think it was somewhere in that range. So again, depending on when the sale falls, work would have to start very soon after, and that very well could have been in the winter. The restriction of single-family occupancy was another thing that we looked at. This property is zoned in the Form-Based Code urban residential context area, which in this case would allow up to 4 units on this lot, when it was vacant. Staff isn't necessarily recommending that the house be converted into 4 units, but that we feel could damage, metaphorically speaking, damage the interior of the house. You would carve up a house that was really only ever used as a single family house over its history, But we do look at it as it has a very large basement right now with an egress window. It also has an entire second floor. The overall square footage of the house is quite large, so the potential to potentially add a second unit as a source of income for the occupants could help with the financing for the project. And that also calls to question the commitment to owner-occupy. We believe that that is a worthy condition of sale to have in there. But like I said, if you allow for a additional unit or something of that sort, that could help the difficulties faced with maintaining this as a single-family house and the financial difficulties that come with renovating. The third option that we had considered was completing a selection of necessary work at the house. So, like I said, we learned a few things through this process, and in speaking with the contractor that's very familiar with the house, we kind of ran through a few ideas that staff had considered as work that could happen before the potential sale of the house without interrupting what a private buyer would end up doing with the house. So we really didn't want to do too much on the interior, not knowing what a future buyer's plans would be, how they want the space laid out. But the benefit in being located in a historic district here is that you have very clear standards that you're expected to follow when it comes to renovation work on the exterior of a property. So I have three things that we had run through. I can elaborate on any of them, but the first being a replacement roof and addressing any structural deficiencies with the structure of the roof. We do feel that the roof is rather old, and there are known locations in the roof that could probably be further supported or at least evaluated in the re-roofing process. So we feel like that's work that could be done immediately. In terms of Historic District Commission oversight there, it's a very common project that they have allowed me to staff approve without going to them for full formal review. Second option would be removal of the existing siding. So right now the house has aluminum siding that is wrapped over the original wood siding, we believe. While the Historic District Commission would prefer to see the original wood siding saved, so essentially remove the aluminum and restore the wood, it's likely that there is lead paint present on the wood siding, so staff would recommend sort of shying away from the attempt to save the existing wood siding. We also don't know what the condition is under the existing aluminum siding, and instead approach the project from a completely remove and reside perspective. So the Historic District Commission would have oversight over what types of materials would be acceptable for that type of work, and obviously staff would apply as any private property to the Historic District Commission to move forward that type of work. This is another one of those projects where it would be a pretty standard request of the Historic District Commission for residing. So that is a conversation that I'm very comfortable with having with them and determining route forward should we choose to go that way. The third option would be looking at the windows in the house. So there are 42 wood historic windows in the house, some in better shape than others, some different ages than others. There have been new replacement windows throughout the house's history, and really what we would look at here is probably evaluating the condition of each window, not just wholesale replacing all of them. A lot of these would be custom sizes, so that could add expense. And especially when looking at wood windows, they're almost infinitely repairable. And with an appropriate storm window applied over top, they can be fairly energy efficient as well. So we would look at each window individually, obviously not affecting the exterior of the house too much per Historic District Commission standards, and repairing those that could be repaired and replacing those that are beyond repair and or inappropriate to the house. There are some more modern windows that are clearly not original to the house. You can actually tell from framing, and they could be converted back to something that's historically appropriate as well. So those are the big three things: formally listing the house with the realtor, revising the conditions of the purchase and development agreement, and completing a selection of necessary work that we are hoping to discuss. And, I'm open to any questions. That is just a starting point for what we have considered so far.
Thank you, Mr. Pesh. With regard to any of the work whether it's the roof and structural reinforcement, or removing the aluminum exterior siding, or repairing the wood windows and the like, would we have an opportunity to avail ourselves of any SHPO grants to offset those costs, or would that cost burden fall onto us and by extension our residents?
Right, it would fall onto the city at this time. We have looked into the possibility of having the house listed in the National Register of Historic Places. That is a fairly lengthy process and one that we hadn't fully pursued up to this point. I have discussed it briefly with SHPO about the potential for that. The rationale being that it would open us up to additional funding sources from the federal government. And currently, while it's in a local historic district, we don't have any local funding sources for historic preservation work. So we're really looking to properties that are in a National Register listed district, which is the area that roughly contains things like the Hackley Library, the Torrent House, the former administration building. So it is not in one of those districts, or properties that are specifically listed on their own as a eligible property. So that is one thing. The other thing to consider is that all of these could be considered eligible expenses in the brownfield plan, so we could essentially reimburse ourselves through that. Obviously, it's still tax dollars that we're discussing, but that would be the means by which the city makes itself whole again with such work.
Thank you. I'd say for myself that of the three options, I would be most interested in looking at revising the conditions of the personal redevelopment agreement to be more flexible for the timeline. And also I'm intrigued by the prospect of potentially having a secondary unit that could be income generating with it being owner occupied otherwise, to help make the numbers work, the financing of the project, so long as that secondary unit does not significantly harm the historical integrity of the house. And so it was intriguing when you talked about the basement and and how it might be able to be managed in a way that still protects and preserves the historical integrity of the home. With regard to the third option of completing a selection of necessary work, perhaps even in tandem with the revising and making more flexible the purchase and redevelopment agreement, of the three things that you talked about investing in, I personally would be most supportive at the outset of the roof and structural reinforcement, because it's important that we, preserve that we've already spent so much money on moving it and getting the foundation situated. So I think it'd be sensible to make that investment in ensuring the roof and structural integrity is strong there for any future developer. But those are my thoughts, and open it up to any further input or questions. Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. As the commission knows, I'm a real estate broker. I just want to make a statement. I won't be looking to put any sort of bid to sell the property. I don't want anything to do with the property other than I would love to see the city sell it, but I'm not interested in listing it or selling it or anything like that. So I just want to make that statement. Jamie, I do want to thank you. I was able to see the property. After looking at this property will need several $1,000s in renovation costs. I personally determined probably around $250,000. If fully renovated, there are lots of unique special features of this property. That's without including the roof. I think there should be a combination of these things. I don't think it should just be number one, list it with a realtor, number two, fix the condition. I think it should be a combination. So I'm just going to touch on all of them. Number one, formally list the house with a realtor. Real estate is always negotiable. They found that out last year with the whole lawsuit with realtors. So the city could put a set price, say, hey, we're not paying any commission. If you sell it, set amount, dollar amount. And if a realtor wanted to sell it for the city, the bonus that the city would see is it would get in front of hundreds of thousands of more eyes because they would put it on the MLS. Therefore, it would be on Zillow, Realtor, Homes.com, etc. Revising the condition of the property. I think that we should not have any deed restrictions on the property. If even if an owner occupant purchased the house, made significant investments restoring it, and 25 years from now they go to sell it, and the best highest use for the building in 25 years would be to turn it into a bed and breakfast, because our downtown has just grown so beautifully, it'd be a perfect spot for a bed and breakfast. A deed restriction is very hard to remove, and it would, who's to say that the best highest use for it in 20, 25 years will be single family use or whatever. So I just want us to be very careful with saying we're going to put a deed restriction on it, because it's already in the historic district or under the supervision of the historic district commission. I think that's plenty. They'll make sure that, you know, it's not turned into a frat house or something that we don't want to see down there. Restrictions to single family occupancy. I mean, I just don't want us to get in any, we're walking a thin line with fair housing and stuff like that to say single family versus multifamily or something like that. So currently, if it was renovated, it could be a single family, but have multiple families live there, because it is a huge house. It's basketball. You can play basketball in those rooms. The ceilings are so high. It's really beautiful. Lots of potential. And then the 12-month project completion timeline, I think, is one of the things that's really hindering the city from selling the property. Now, if we said, hey, 12 months to get the outside done or something like that, so that it conforms to what the historic district's looking for, maybe that's one thing. But if the city says you have to be you have to be an owner occupant, and I buy it, which I'm not buying it, I'm just saying, hypothetically, if I was the purchaser of it, I have to be an owner occupant, and I only have 12 months to fix it, and I have to live there. The house currently isn't livable. So I just think those two things are kind of butting into each other. Whoever buys this, maybe a longer timeline, because of the significant amount of work inside. I wrote down some notes. The house needs, and it may need more than this. This is just visible observations. Insulation, electrical, plumbing, drywall, a full bathroom, 2 of them, full kitchen. There's 0 rough-ins in the basement of the house. For those who don't know what rough-ins are, we currently don't have any water running to the property and no sewer running from the property. So those 2 things would have to be done. That's another thing I think that the city should consider doing, or at least waiving the fees for those connection fees. Rough ends in the basement. Windows don't need to be replaced. Like you said, not all of them need to be replaced. I think the owner can take care of the windows, because some of them definitely can be saved. The siding that needs to be evaluated and done. Refinishings throughout the house, and many other exterior finishings that need to be done. So, in my professional opinion, I think that the city would get this house sold and get it sold to someone who's going to bring it back to life the way that it should be done. Is the city invest in a roof for the property, because I think the structural things are going to be things that buyers are going to, they want to make sure they want to feel confident about the structural things of it. Has a new foundation, so that's good. But if the city looks at the roof and we work with the buyer on the rough ends or the plumbing for the property, the rest of it would need to be an investment made by the buyer. Work with an agent to at least get it in front of more eyeballs, and set a price on it, or set at least a reserve, a minimum. We don't have any price on it right now, and I don't want someone to come through and bid hey, I'll give you $25,000 for it, City of Muskegon. I think we should set a reserve price on it, and then even if we don't use an agent and we just do a blind bidding system, have a reserve set, and then take bids from there. But the biggest thing is going to be getting it. It was great that we moved it. I think a lot of people saw that this beautiful house was moving down the street in the city of Muskegon, and it kind of stopped there. I'm in real estate myself, and I didn't even know that the house was for sale. So I think that we need to do whatever we can to get it in front of more eyeballs. And the people that go inside of that, or the investors that say, hey, I can see the potential in it, who walk in there will see the potential in it, because I see the potential in it. And I think a lot of people should go and look at this house because it has a ton of potential. It is beautiful. And yeah, that's all I got. I know I said a whole bunch of stuff, but I just want to share all that because I took time to look at the property.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate those insights. I do want to note with regard to the requirement for single family or owner occupancy that would start from after it's renovated. So it wouldn't necessarily be required that you must live there while it's being renovated. Once you've made the investments and you have a certificate of occupancy, then the requirement for living there would start. I would like some more information, and maybe this is not well, it kind of is the time, but I'm curious in terms of listing. So my reservation with listing it was when you mentioned like not having a price for it, and I didn't want to necessarily list this property not having a price, and what does that give us in a sticky situation where someone is like, well, here's $25,000 for it, and like, and so I guess it's like better understanding of like the reserve pricing or like because I do like the idea of getting it listed so that it has more eyeballs and more attention. So potential more opportunities. So I guess we can always put a condition that is conditioned upon commission approval. So you can bid whatever you want. They can tell you what their plans are, and you guys can bring something forward to the city commission, and then we decide. I guess I'm open and intrigued by it. I just wouldn't want to list it for nothing, and then you just give us bid whatever you want. We can't take questions or answers from the audience. I'm sorry, but I'm going to come back to you unless you want to piggyback off that right quick.
Yeah, this is just on what you're talking about. One of the things that the city or the staff can do is they can get three independent CMAs or comparative market analysis and have a average of what its current market value and its current condition is because of the amount of money that's going to be needed to restore the home. There are agents all over, brokers all over Muskegon that'll do that for the city for free. And I think that staff could get 3 of those, take the average of the 3, and then you would have at least a price to start at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cochin.
Yeah. Planner Pesh, I wanted to touch base with you on a couple of things. The first thing is the 12-month project completion timeline. As you stated, you think that was a hindrance for bids, and I would completely agree. I think that you're going to hear that sentiment across the board. I think that having that timeline was really restrictive. But what I want to know is why did we decide on a 12-month project completion timeline?
I think the idea there was that the house wasn't going to be in any better condition the longer it sat. So, well, on our end, we could sell it. We also wanted to ensure that whoever bought it was really getting into the project right away. Again, I don't think there was any real reason that 12 months specifically was chosen. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes with city lot sales, we'll set like an 18-month period for getting the project well underway. So we really wanted to ensure that the project was well underway in a very short time frame.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What if instead of a completion timeline, we had a start timeline?
Yeah, we could do that. We did, so I think I have it here. Like I said, it was, start timeline was within 60 days for the exterior. I remember that one for sure. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, I think it was 120 days for the interior. So we did have a start timeline, but again, it was even tighter than the completion timeline. Obviously, you're going to start before you finish, but
right.
That again could be pushed out a ways to offer a little bit more flexibility. But we also had a bid or request for bids that was very specific in the things that we were looking for, and that included almost a full-fledged construction plan. So we expected a lot of that work to be done up front, and by the time the sale was completed, a lot of that would be ready to go. So we didn't think there would be a huge delay between planning and doing for a project like this. So again, we could keep that the same, but I think really it's that 12-month period that was more restricting to folks.
Yeah, I definitely hear you there, and I think that even when you mentioned the time frame of starting the exterior process, when the house would be sold, depending on when that is, like you said, you run into the winter, and then you have to go to the HDC for the siding, and that can be a more of a lengthy process as well for folks. And so I do think maybe extending even some of those start dates would probably be in the best interest of the selling of the house, and then obviously getting it in front of more people in some fashion I think would be a good idea. I haven't seen any news stories that the house is for sale.
Yeah, there were news stories. I don't know how much they emphasized the sale of the house or even directed people to that bid process. But I definitely had, there was plenty of news coverage about the house even after the move itself. So I was really hoping that that would continue to push people our way. But again, we can't determine exactly what is said in those reports, whether it's television, digital, otherwise. I can just send the URL and say, please direct people to this location, which I tried to do in every case.
I'm sure you did a great job with that. And then the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on is, because you're on the Historic District Commission, you help facilitate everything with it. To Commissioner Kilgo's point about making sure that the house wouldn't be divided up and become like a frat house or anything like that. Can you kind of convey the Historic District Commission's purview over the inside of the home?
Yeah, so essentially the Historic District Commission has no purview on the inside of the home other than features which will affect the exterior of the home. So they are solely focused on what you can see from outside the house. They can't really say what would happen on the interior, but also knowing the financial undertaking that would come with a project like this, I wouldn't expect significant changes to the interior of the home just because of the associated costs. And when we start talking about things like turning this into potentially 4 units, I think that may prove to be more costly than a smaller number of units. But you're correct that the Historic District Commission really wouldn't oversee that. They don't oversee use of properties. So that would really fall back on the zoning requirements.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Coaches. Commissioners, anything else you wish to ask or add at this time? All right. With regard to the deed restriction, whether it's single family with potential or duplex, a reasonable duplex, I do think it's important to have that on there, setting what our expectations from the onset. But I also understand the concern that, maybe a couple of decades or half century, sometime in the future, it isn't sensible to maintain exactly as we are envisioning today. So if that were to happen somewhere down the road, and they want to get out of that or lift those deed restrictions or modify the deed restrictions, would it be a case of them essentially coming to city staff and then bringing something to the city commission, and the city commission would decide to modify or lift those deed restrictions at that point?
Seems like it'd be the process to me, but I can't say for certain because I have no experience in any work of that nature. But I could definitely look into that and determine what the appropriate route would be in the future if that were the case.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anything else you want to share with us before we move on to the next item?
No, I believe that is it.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Cochin.
One last question. For anybody who is interested in purchasing this house, how would they go about doing that right now?
Contact me currently. We were really waiting post the close of the bid period until now. We didn't want to walk anybody through necessarily, but I keep a running list of people that have been interested in the project through the, I guess, multiple years, not necessarily all of them with city involvement. And I try to keep everybody up to date on where the project is going, what's happening with it. I have plenty of neighbors, things like that, that just want to know what's going on. But my contact information is on the Historic District Commission page, and anybody can reach out to me whenever they want to, and I'd be happy to have a conversation.
Thank you. Commissioner Kilgo.
Yeah. For the fairness of the public and for just the fairness in selling a house in general, I'd like to see if staff could make a decision on what they're going to do, whether we say we are going to keep it a bid process and do it bid process, or we're going to list it and hear what restrictions or no restriction, whatever staff chooses to do before we start showing the house and this person can see it and this person can't. Because if currently the bid process is closed, correct?
Correct.
So if the bid process is closed, but tomorrow somebody sees the house, but the general public can't see the house, it's not fair. So I would ask that we staff take our recommendations, come up with a plan, and then announce it. And then we either contact the agent or contact you if we're doing bid process or however we choose to do it. That way it's fair across the board for everyone.
Yeah, I completely agree. That I guess I didn't elaborate on that as enough, but we would intend to come back with a finalized plan, not just a discussion like this and then move forward on our own. We would intend to put that down on paper, essentially, come back to you all and solidify that as the step forward.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Next item, commission meeting agenda structure.
So we've had some suggested feedback that we look at moving public hearings up on our agenda, as well as adding a section on our agenda for federal, state, and county elected officials to provide updates. The reason for moving the public hearing one up is that, as I noted in the memo, there's often some confusion during public hearings about when the proper time to talk about a public hearing is. And it's not during public comment, it's actually during the public hearing. So if we were to move that up in the agenda to prior before the public comment on agenda items, that would cut down on that confusion. Additionally, oftentimes both presenters and folks who are coming to comment on a public agenda item, or sorry, a public hearing item, usually leave after that, and so it gives them the opportunity to leave sooner. And if there's multiple things going on, it frees up space within our meeting room for other folks to come in and have a seat of that nature. So this is not on the agenda for tomorrow. I'm putting on there just to get some feedback from you all. There is a sample agenda. Most of us are pretty familiar with our current agendas, but after honors, awards, and presentations, there would be the public hearing section if there were any. Then the federal, state, county officials updates. The way that would work would be up to the discretion of the commission, and then moving into public comments on agenda items before we get into the consent agenda. This is also, just as an FYI, public hearings at the top of the meeting are how most other local governments structure their meetings. So it's a familiar process for people who are coming in for those public hearing processes. So just looking for some feedback on that. If y'all like the option of the agenda move, I'll put that on for action on the second meeting in the month. But the commission does set the flow of the meeting as far as those big bullet points on the agenda. So it's not something that staff can change on its own.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Manager. I do think that those changes are sensible with regard to putting the public hearings earlier in the meeting. Like you said, not only it allows the people that are coming to speak on it to get out of here sooner, particularly if that's the only thing they're here, rather than keeping it after consent agenda, because sometimes those consent agenda discussion and deliberation of both can go on for quite a bit of time. But also the people that are petitioning for the item that has the public hearing, oftentimes they have a professional staff with them, a lawyer or an engineer or an architect or something who they're paying to be here. And so that's just another development friendly feature, saving them some money, rather than just sitting in the audience and then paying them quite a bit of money to sit in the audience until such time that they can present to us. And then I like that we're adding the opportunities. So if we do have any guests from our federal partners or state partners or county partners that happen to attend, rather than keeping them to the very end of the meeting to speak to us, they can address us right off the top. There's one other thing that I would suggest, and it's just a matter of semantics, or not semantics, but changing language, and that is for public comment on non-agenda items. Currently, our commission rules specifies that language. We should have general public comment, in my opinion, and also state law. You have general public comment. Technically, I think we can get around it because we have public comment at the beginning on agenda items and non-agenda items at the end. But I would just feel more comfortable, personally, if we have general public comment at the end, because even if they've addressed at the beginning on an item, they may want to weigh in and say, you know, they have additional perspective to share with us. And so I'd rather just keep it open-ended, and that's how we've been operating anyhow. So I would like our operations to align with the actual wording in there and have general public comment instead of public comment on non-agenda items. Okay? So I think I saw your hand up, Commissioner Kilgo.
No, sir.
Oh, no. Okay. I'm just used to looking down and calling on you. Commissioners, do you have thoughts you wish to share? Do you like the changes? Do you have any questions or concerns? Vice Mayor St. Clair.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I particularly like the change of moving things to free up space for people. These meetings can be very long, and while we are expected and required to be here, not everyone else is. And you know, I think that's a good point about consultants and professional staff having to be compensated by the hour, which is not super friendly to our constituency. And also, I know there's been quite a few times where we have had another elected official come and have to leave because they had other engagements, and I know that they came for a reason, and maybe they weren't able to share why they were here. So I do like the idea of moving that to the beginning as well. Just, you know, everybody's very busy, and I appreciate them coming, but sometimes our meetings are 4 or 5 hours long, and it's not reasonable to expect them to wait to speak to us.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Anything else you wish to add or ask commissioners about this? No? All right. So, I mean, the general consensus to move this forward. This will be formally on our agenda future to adopt, but nobody has any concerns or quibbles. All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager. And speaking of public comment, we are at that point in our meeting. We do have one, Mr. Muhammad. Well, I know Miss Craig had something to share, but Mr. Muhammad also submitted a public comment.
He said the meeting was going too long. And he plans to come back tomorrow. I did tell him that we were almost there, but he said he was done.
Okay. I know Jake just ran out of the hallway. He might have been able to catch one or both of them. So we'll give that just another second to see if they're...
He said he had to leave. He's going to come tomorrow.
Okay. Was Miss Craig out there by chance?
He said we have to leave.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
My point, exactly.
So, well, this is general public comment. We have one member of the general public with us right this now. Anything you wish to share with us? No? Okay. Then we're going to go to the phones. That is 231-724-6721. This is an opportunity for you to give your thoughts and input to the commission, not an opportunity for question and answers. If that is something you desire, we can arrange time for that. You'll have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks. When you're calling, upon answering, make sure your audio is turned down in the background so we don't get that echo disturbance. And we'll give that a few moments for anyone to call in. Again, that number is 231-724-6721. Doesn't sound like we have any callers. Okay. Commissioners, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Commissioner Cochin to adjourn. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you. Take care. Be well.